Okay. All right, so one of the things that I wanted to do was go ahead and give you guys a secondary video reference to use just so you can kind of learn how to navigate Google Sheets. And for this, I'm going to be using one of the templates I made. Now, that being said, for your assignments that you'll be submitting for class, if these are the same, you can use them. I do need to check them over again prior to your upcoming Google Sheets assignment and be sure. But for now, we'll just use the ones that I've uploaded to kind of help you as a reference guide. So one of the things that I'm going to do first is kind of just go ahead and share my screen so you can see what I can see. Now, if the internet kind of comes in and out during this recording, you know, I can post it again, but or you can email me if you have questions and miss something. That's not always great. So let's just get that out the way. But we're going to go ahead and look here. So I have a template sheet out, right? And then I have the instructor reference sheet that is available on the page. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to include your count. So your count is just the number of numbers that you see. So for this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. So our count here is going to be 6, and then it will also be 6 here. The next thing we want to do is we want to get the mean. So the mean is just the average of all the numbers added together and then divided by the number of numbers. You can see this formula here. So each one of these represents a replicate, each one of these values, and then the number of replicates or n. So what I'm going to do is show you how in Google Sheets to just calculate mean. So we're going to do this using a formula that is given to us. So we'll highlight the boxes that we're looking at, okay, and then we'll hit enter. Now, once we've done that, Google Sheets will autofill the other side, and it'll highlight automatically the columns on that side. You can use this as a tool as you're working through things, but one of the things I do want to say is be sure that your formulas are always correct when you're putting these things in, because if they're not, your values will be off. And don't necessarily rely all the time on the work that I've posted. It's more just a guide and gives you an idea of what things should look like. Check your formulas over 100% of the time when you're calculating things. So now we have our count and our mean. I'm pretty sure you guys, again, understand what that is. Again, the mean is just the average. It's just the number of replicates divided by, or each individual replicate value divided by the number of replicates. It's where we believe our basic, like, kind of middle value of the data set is going to set. It's one way to measure the central value of a data set. Other ways are mode, as well as a couple of different things. But for now, we'll just look at this. And then the next thing that this is asking for is a rounded value. Here I'm going to put 8.7. And that's just so when we go to make our figure, we remember what these values are. Okay, I'm going to keep this to the same number of sig figs. You don't necessarily need to worry about that. But I have 3 here and 3 here. Okay, if you just want to always round off to like 2 decimal places, that's fine too. Okay, standard deviation. Okay, standard deviation is the number of sets, okay, we believe that our data set can exist within as from where the mean value lies. So I know that's really confusing, and there's a formula here for that. But if you check this sheet here, which is the completed reference sheet, you can see that I have provided a formula for you that you can use. So when you click here, okay, we can see this big thing. All right, we don't necessarily need to calculate that like that. Ooh. You can also do this by calculating the standard deviation of the sample. So, and that is a much easier way to do this. So let's give my computer a moment to freak out, and then we'll keep working. So, okay. All right. So here in this instance, we can use the standard deviation of the sample to kind of show us where our values are going to set are how big our standard deviations from the mean are that we can use to measure set values that we come across, okay? So standard deviation, and we want the standard deviation of the sample. And again, we're just highlighting all these values here, okay, because this is a sample from a larger population, all right? And then we're going to do the same here. Just highlighting all these values off. Now, we have our calculated standard deviation. The next thing we're going to do is calculate standard error. And again, this shows us how much error or bias could be present within our data set. It's a great way to analyze things. And again, if we see more variance in the data set, the standard deviation is going to be greater. And because standard error is calculated based off of standard deviation, it will also be higher, as well as our confidence interval. That is a way for us to measure variance within the data set and evaluate where we could see our any predicted values kind of lying along the bell curve. So, standard error. All right. And again, that's just the standard deviation, okay, divided by our square root of n, which in this example is 6, okay? And this is the longer formula for calculating that out. And here, we're just going to do that again. It's our standard deviation, yeah, our standard deviation value divided by our square root of 6. So now we have standard error. And again, our confidence interval, or how confident, where we can be 95% confident that the true mean value lies, or yeah, our value lies within the range of the mean, is going to be calculated based off that standard error value. So you can kind of see as that standard error value increases, our confidence interval is also going to increase. So we can see here that this is 2 times, right, our standard error value that we calculated. Oh, sorry, I meant to put equals. Equals 2 times our standard error value that we calculated multiplied by our t-value. And this is always going to be provided to you. So hopefully that makes this a little bit easier for you. And we're going to end up doing the same thing on the other side. And that's going to be, again, 2 times our standard error value times our t-value. Now, we're going to calculate our confidence interval divided by 2. And that's just the value we have above us, okay, divided by 2. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Again, just our confidence interval divided by 2. Then we're going to do our mean plus our confidence interval, which in this instance, we're going to use our unrounded value as part of the calculation. And we're going to use our confidence interval over 2 for that. Okay, and then we're going to do our mean minus our confidence interval divided by 2. And we'll do that again on this side. And now we have all of our calculations set so we can start working on building a figure. So now that we've done this, we are going to highlight only these 2 values here, then click Insert, and then click Chart. Immediately, this is going to give us a chart. When we scroll down on this side, it's having us use column B as a label. We don't want that. And we also don't want the box below that checked either. So now this is kind of giving us like a baseline, right, to work with. So for this value here, we have an x value, right? And we know our y is dependent on our x, so we can look at our data set. And in this instance, okay, we know based on our example that that is going to be here. Let me show you this real quick. Oh, it's going to be forest. Sorry about that. Okay. For our horizontal, this is going to be forest. Okay. And then here, we're going to have tree. We're going to have, okay, average tree height. And we can put this in meters. Okay. All right. Now, when we're including this in, one of the things that I recommend that you do is increase the font size so you can actually see what it is you're looking at. I also like to bold them off and keep them all one color. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here with these two columns. I'm going to change these font sizes to where they're identical, bold them off, and keep them all one color. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of just mess with our axes a little bit. You notice here we don't have an axis line. If you click on it and you click Show Axis Line, that'll pop up. Okay? All right, and the next thing you can do is scroll down to Grid Lines and Ticks. Okay? And add in our major and ticks. I like to position those across. And then our minor ticks. And I like to position those on the outside. So, and because we changed our font size here, we could also do that again here. And again, this is just a way for you to kind of get used to messing with Google Sheets and figuring stuff out. Now, one of the only things we're missing now as far as labels go is a title. So in this instance, I'm going to call this figure 1, and it's going to be average tree height in meters of two different forests. And I can do A and then and B, right? And that is a pretty summative title. And when you're writing these things, you know, you're going to want to have a very summative title, something that I can tell you know what you're talking about. I also like to bold or italicize and maybe center these off. Um, okay. Now, the next thing we're missing is for these mean values. If you notice when we click on it, we're missing a data label, right? We don't have data labels here, right? We can change those to where they're positioned on that outside end. Okay. Bold them off and just kind of keep that text color to what we know it to be. And then do the same thing here. All right. We're going to add a data label. Okay. And then just go ahead, position that on that outside end, bold it, and then do this here. And if you want, you can change this to your rounded value. So here, I'll just go ahead and make this 8.67. And then here, I can change this to 12.33. Now, we don't know what this data is that we're looking at. So now we need to add in something called a legend. So for this first box that I've double clicked, that's blue, we are going to call this forest A. Okay, and again, we're just going to keep things synonymous if we can, all the way across where it's the same size we can kind of see what it is that we're looking at and keep that text color a little bit the same. Okay. And then here we have Forest B. And again, just keeping things consistent, right? One of the things that I like to do is also just click on the legend as a whole and then change the position of it, right? We want to get it outside of that box so we can see what it is we're looking at. Now, we're still missing something here. We're missing our confidence interval, right? And whenever we're including our confidence interval, we're going to include it as our confidence interval value divided by 2. In order to include that, we're going to click error bar, change this from percent to constant, okay? And then we're going to include our calculated value, which is our confidence interval, divided by 2. In this instance, it's 2.17. Okay? And do the same here. You can do the same thing here. And this one is 2.54. Now we can see that these two values do overlap, okay? And that means that they are not significantly different, okay? So depending on what our hypothesis is, that would either let us know whether we could reject or fail to reject our hypothesis. So that depends on what it is you're stating. So let's go down here and we can also change these, let's see, this vertical axis. You always want to include just a little bit of space, right, over the top so we can see the top of that bar. So, and again, I've got some tips here. You're going to want to be sure your data is always accurate to the data that's provided. Give it a title, label your X, your independent, and Y dependent axes. Okay, you're going to include your units, right? I've got meters here. And you're going to color coordinate your bars, which I'll show you how to do in a second. Place your data labels and then include accurate and correctly formatted confidence intervals. So now, let's see. You can also change your color. Because this is a forest, we could do 2 different shades of green, right? Just for fun. And you can also select the different series here at the top. Okay. And now it looks like this. So again, this is a way for you to figure out based on what your hypothesis is, whether you'll be rejecting or failing to reject it. Okay, and it helps you evaluate experimental outcomes. If you need to, watch this video again, move slowly. As far as grading goes with these kinds of assignments, I do want to let you know that grading is progressive, so it starts off pretty easy. But as we progress through the semester, I'll not just be looking to see that you included things, but that they're accurate. So just as good practice, go ahead and make sure you're always including your figurehead, your X and Y axis labels, your confidence intervals, your values here that denote what they are, as well as a legend. Okay, I want to be able to be sure I can see everything and make sure that they're accurate. Okay, all right. Now, again, I have student support hours and tutoring sessions on Fridays from 1 to 3. That is subject to change if you guys find that you need additional help. And I will upload this and you can reach out to me at any point if you have questions.